You know, I've been in training for some years. I've been training and development as a facilitator. I've been in training and development as a consultant. I've been in training and development as a curriculum developer. I've been in training and development as a, I've been in I've been there as an evaluator. So I could actually say I understand maybe not everything, but to a great depth, I understand little about training and development. Sometimes ago, it was around 2012, I was having a training, and I had this regional manager who came to my training, and the regional manager came just to find out something. There was this young couple serving with their organizations, and the young couple was training with us. So the regional manager saw how the young man was busy reading up and down, and he asked him, "What are you doing?" He said, "He's preparing for a professional exam." And according to the regional manager, he laughed at the young man. Like, all these professional bodies, they're all the same. They just come, talk to you, collect your money, give you paper in the name of certificate, and then you don't learn anything and all of that. And the young couple challenged him and said, "No, in this place that I'm doing my training, it's not the same. You actually learn. You actually get to understand what you're learning, and you can practice, you can apply what you've learned." And it was a heated argument, and the regional manager decided to give it a try. So let him come and find out what they are really teaching that will make his staff to tell him that, yes, these people are really doing it right. And he came. He came for that training. It was a weekend program like this, but it was offline. So they came in class, and I remember that Saturday morning, I was at the training venue, and the young man came and met with the coordinator and spoke with the coordinator. He wanted to convince the young couple that, yes, you can actually pay money and come and collect certificate anytime. So it doesn't really matter. So he came there, spoke to the coordinator, and the coordinator said to him, "Sir, sorry, we don't really sell certificates here. You have to actually go through the training. If not 100%, but at least you must attend at least 75% training, and then you will write your exam." And he told the young couple, I said, "No, I can actually read and understand and pass my exam. So just give me the materials and then tell me when I'm going to come back to collect my certificate." So I saw them with all the acrobatics they were doing. So they called my attention. And the man said to me, said, "I'm a regional manager of so company. It's a very big company anyway." And they said, "I want to take this course, and I don't really have all the time. I am the regional manager overseeing Kwara State, Niger State, Kogi State, Benue State, Nasarawa State, Abuja." Which other state did he call? Jos, Gombe. All right. So, well, like he's always traveling, so he will not have time to attend the class. I said, "Okay, no problem. Since you don't have time to attend all the classes, so why don't you attend at least this one you're here? So if you attend this one you're here, we'll be able to make a report on your case, and then you can write your exam online." And then he said, "No. So to cut the long story short, I was able to convince him. He sat down, and I told him the class starts by 9 o'clock. So if you can stay till 12 o'clock, that will be break time. Then you can go. After taking your break, you can go." And we agreed. So he sat down, took the materials, and took the first section, took the second section. So we went for a break. And I was expecting to leave. He didn't leave. He came back for the second session. That's the afternoon session. He stayed till 4 o'clock. He didn't leave. I waited. They came back for the evening session. He stayed till around 6:30. He didn't still leave. At the end of the program, he says, "Sir, please, can I drop you off?" I said, "Why not?" So he drove me to my hotel where I was staying. The next day, which was a Sunday morning, he was the first person to call me and say, "Please, sir, can I come and pick you up?" I'm like, "You didn't travel again?" He said, No. That he has to take part of this class. I'm like, "Okay, no problem." So he came, took me from my hotel, took me to class, and then he stayed all through the class again till the evening, and yet did not go. So he took me back to my hotel room in the evening again, and then paid for my food. I was beginning to wonder what's happening with this man. Okay, then the next weekend he was not going to be around, but he had to travel from Niger State. The training was taking place in Nasarawa State. He had to travel from Niger State to Nasarawa State. Now he had to pay for his accommodation and all of that. And I was wondering, now he came all through the program. He came from different parts of the country. He's either coming from Niger, coming from Lagos, coming from Abuja, whichever place he was coming from, but he was actually coming from somewhere. At the day the class was to conclude, he made one remark, and I felt like, wow, I never noticed. He said that this same training he's doing here, the company paid, was it 250,000 for them to do the training with a company, a consulting firm. And after they finished the training, now just listen to this. He said they have, they always have companies, their company always have training, but the challenge with the training is that they don't get to learn anything. So what they do is that they arrange with the training body, and if the fee is 200,000, so they give the company 150,000 and take 100,000, right? And the 100,000 they will use it to sort out their hotel bill for the number of days the training was going to stay. And then at the end of the day, they go and collect certificate from the same organization and go and report to their own organization. And he said in most cases, if it was a compulsory training that was to take place in their own office, everybody has to be there. At the end of the day, they have to tear the certificate because they don't really get to have value for it. And he said this one is not up to, like if you were to divide the money into 5, is not up to 1/5 of what they paid as the organization paid. But the value he has gotten in this place is far more than he has gotten since he joined the organization. And that this simple training, as it were, has helped him to solve problems that had been on his table for years that nobody had been able to give him answers to, and no training had been able to give him answers to, and no consultant had been able to give him answers to. And I was like, this is good, all right? And since he finished, I think that was in 2012, since he finished that program, he has taken about 3 additional programs with us. And he's a very active member of this institute from 2013 to date. He has been a very active member. And that was really, really impressive. The question is, what really got to him? Was it the training method? Was it the training content? Was it the money? The less money he was going to pay? Was it the challenge that he took to convince his staff that all of these training bodies and professional bodies, they're all just the same, they're all after money? So what really got him to take that challenge? Maybe he just wanted to make a point. But at the end of the day, he was able to come to the point of realizing that the value he got was worth more than all the reasons he first came. And that is very, very important for us in the HR industry. I want us to understand this keyword, value. The keyword is value. The keyword is value. I want us to understand that keyword, value. No matter what you do in the HR industry, make sure you're offering value. It's obvious that the price of what we give might not be quantifiable as to product, like maybe to like what is the price of tomatoes, or they can measure it in kilogram and then sell. The value of what we give is not quantifiable in terms of weight, in terms of size, but it could be quantifiable in terms of performance. It could be quantifiable in terms of orientation. It could be quantifiable in terms of results achieved. So we as HR practitioners must pay attention to value. And value cuts across every part of human resource management. Value cuts across. You could be so shocked to notice that value could be a sentence that you made. Value could be a letter that you wrote. Value could be a sort of emotional disposal that you gave to certain situations. Value could be the depth of skills you have. Value could be the degree of competencies that you have. So it's important to understand the keyword value. And in HR, all we want to do is keep giving value, right? That's all we want to do. Keep generating value and keep delivering value. That's all we want to do, right? Remember, we are managing the change in human behavior. So we must pay attention to improving all strategic approaches to managing these dynamic changes in human behaviors as they arise. All right. And one of the ways to handle this human behavior, this continuous change that requires continuous adaptation, is training. Okay, training. So when we give the right training for the right goals, we have the right results. Right training for the wrong goals, wrong results. Wrong training for the right goals, wrong results. Wrong training for the wrong goals, very bad results. So the question is, how do we get to know that a training will be effective and efficient? How do we get to know that this training we are going to give will deliver results from personal dimension to corporate dimension to industry dimension? So how do we get to understand that? That makes training needs assessment very, very important. Okay, very, very important. And whenever we talk about training, it's important we understand something. Training should, as for us in organizations and for HR practitioners, training has to address three basic skills. Training has to address three basic skills. And first is the personal skills. All of the things that has to do with the development of the worker, of the employee, training has to address that. So personal development, personal advancement, training has to put that into consideration, right? Then the second thing that training has to put into consideration is the dimension of organizational skills, organizational development, organizational wellness, organizational performance, right? So that's two. And the third one is market development or industry development. So we need training to build our skills personally. We need training to build corporate skills. Then we need training to build industry skills. And someone could actually ask the question, all of these, are they not skills? Can't we just say they are all personal development skills? Yes, we can decide to say so, but they are not. So if I decide to go for a personal training, or perhaps if an organization decides to give me a training that is going to take care of my own personal training needs, is different from when an organization is giving me a training that is only going to pay attention to the organizational training needs. All right, so there need to be a balance. That's where I'm going to. There need to be a balance. So whenever you are organizing a training for your staff, for your organization, it has to be a training that will meet these three needs: the personal development needs, the corporate needs, and the industry needs. If you give staff trainings that only satisfy corporate needs, they will feel less motivated to be part of the training. They will feel less motivated to make out their time for the training. Okay, and they could have less morale to have the full benefit of the training. All right. And we've heard over and over again and people saying things like, when I train my staff, they leave and go to other organizations. So you see, that's a wrong motive, and that's going to be followed by a wrong approach of training. That's going to give you a wrong result. All right. And then you have those people that feel like, I'm joining this company. After I'm being trained, then I will leave and join another organization. That's still a wrong motive rather, to join a company, and that's going to give a wrong result. So we must pay attention in raising training that has the right motives for the right results, or for the right motives for the right goals, and those will give us the right results. So it's important we pay attention to training. So training is very, very crucial. Training is very, very crucial. When there is thorough training needs analysis, it helps the trainer, it helps the organization structure the training needs to suit the organization and personal and industry needs. All right, so it makes the trainer also confident in delivering the training. Then it builds the morale, it boosts the morale of the participants. It makes training a crucial tool for corporate growth and development. All right, makes training a very crucial tool for corporate growth and development. All right, so that's very, very important. That's very, very important. Okay, so let's look at what we have here as training. One thing I've always told people is very simple. Don't go for a training you don't pay, you don't attach value to. Any training that you're going for that does not have, you've not built goals and objectives while you are attending those trainings, they will just come out as knowledge. And we all know that knowledge is not enough. Knowledge only cannot give you results. In fact, and if you don't make use of what you know, you will definitely get nothing from what you know. If you don't make use of what you know, you definitely get nothing from what you know. And that's one of the reasons we have a whole lot of people going to school, but we still come out looking for jobs because we don't really see value in what we've learned, right? So we cannot really make any good means out of what we know. So we practically get nothing of what we know. All right. But in training, we actually trained to be able to do. Training is a form of empowerment, right? So training is different from education, where we learn, create new knowledge and learn. And most often we might not really get the empowerment, but in training, we get new knowledge, we learn, then we are empowered to replicate what we've learned. All right. And I think I've said this over and over again in my trainings. If after taking a professional course, you're still looking for a job, then there is a problem somewhere. Go and do your training needs analysis. Were you in the right place at the right time for the right goals? Were you for the right purpose? And this is not in any way a form of discouragement, but it should actually help us get to always find the best in our pursuits. If you are going for a professional training for the purpose of adding adding a certification and adding an acronym to your name, that is good. There is nothing bad with it. But the challenge there is that you might not be able to deliver the value that your name now carries. That's where the challenge is. But for those that actually came for the value, the name delivers equal value with the acronym that goes with it. So that makes a whole lot of difference. All right, that makes a whole lot of difference. All right, that makes a whole lot of difference. So we must therefore pay attention to understanding training needs analysis. All right. Okay. So that being said, let's see how fast and far we can go. Please, if there is anyone that's supposed to be in this class that is not here, please let's quickly reach out to them, especially those of them in our groups. Please let's reach out to them so that we can all learn together. Right? Okay, so here we are going to be learning the training cycle, the training needs analysis. Then we're going to explain why we need the training needs analysis. Then we'll look at the factors to consider in training needs analysis. We'll look at the knowledge, skill, and abilities the various training and development perspectives. We look at the components of the training needs analysis reports, then look at the steps for training needs analysis, then the importance of learning styles for training needs analysis, and then factors for design and delivery strategy. Now, one of the things we will actually like to have here is that by the end of this class, you would have been able to know how to conduct training needs analysis so as to know what skills, what knowledge, what abilities will be required to drive an organization, right? Okay, so why should organizations actually indulge in training needs analysis? All right, so training needs analysis is a crucial step for any training program, and it helps trainer to identify the requirements and design a successful training program. It also helps the trainer to be confident of delivering the objective of the training program. All right, okay, so why should organizations bother about training needs analysis? Strategically, training is a great tool for driving growth and development, right? And there is a theory in human resource management that we call the resource-based view, all right, RBV. And what does resource-based view theory say? The resource-based view theory, in simple terms, says that the capacity of an organization is dependent or is the sum total of the summation of the individual capacities in that organization. So company XYZ, the capacity of XYZ as a company is dependent on the summation of the capacities, the individual capacities of X plus the individual capacities of Y plus the individual capacities of Z. That is going to give us the general capacity of the organization. All right. So in essence, the resource-based theory agrees that it is the people in an organization that make up the organization. It is the people in an organization that make up the organization. So one of the ways to now create a strategic advantage is to always ensure that your staff are empowered, staff are trained from senior management to low management at all levels. Staff are well equipped, okay, to carry out their responsibilities. And apart from carrying out their responsibilities, remember, I mentioned 3 skills. We have 3 dimensions. The personal dimension to training, where the person that is going to be trained or the employee is going to be trained have an affinity towards the training because they have their goals, their personal development goals going to be met by attending the training that have been prescribed by the organization. That's one dimension of training. Then second dimension of training is the corporate development, right? Corporate growth and development. So my organization is training me. I'm achieving my goal. At the same time, I'm building capacity to help the organization achieve their goals, all right? So the third dimension is the market dimension, all right? It might not necessarily be about now personal development. It might not be about corporate development. It might be about the industry development, right? So I have to learn the skills that will make me fit for the industry, not just for my organization alone, but it will make me fit for the industry as a whole, the market as a whole, right? So I don't just leave company A and start all over fresh in company B. So while I'm building personal skills, building corporate skills, and also building industry skills, right? That's very, very important. Very, very important. Now in the training cycle, we have identify, evaluate, implement, and develop. So quickly, let's look at what each one means. In identify and distinguish the problems or issues impacting the business operations and performance. You must keep in mind that not every one of the recognized problems or issues can be solved by means of training. So the ones that require mentoring, the ones that require coaching, the ones that require supervision, the one that require whichever approach to give better results, then you go ahead. Now, in identifying, what do we really do? Identifying, I would say there are 3 things there. So you identify one, where are we going to as an organization, all right? That's one. Then 2, what capacities do we need to build to get there? That's the second thing we need to identify. Possibly the third thing is, where are we currently? All right, where are we currently? So training needs analysis provides us with that overview of how to walk ourselves from where we are to where we want to get to. It helps us with the overview of the capacity we have right now to be able to meet our goals versus the capacity we need to be able to meet our goals. So training needs analysis becomes very, very crucial then as a strategic tool in strategic sustenance of an organization, right? Okay, so that's very, very important, all right? Some of us here could see ourselves in our 70s, in our 90s, still be relevant. So if you see yourself in your 90s, in your 100s, being relevant, you've identified one thing. You've identified that, yes, you could still be relevant at 100. So the question that you need to ask yourself is that at the level I am now, if I continue like this, by the time I get to 100, will I still be relevant? If the answer is no, if I continue doing what I'm doing right now, will I still be relevant in the next 100 years? If the answer is no, then the question is, how do I keep building capacity to remain relevant even at 100? So that's the same thing organizations should bother their heads about. Now, have developed, prioritize, and organize the identified or distinguished needs and create training goals. Develop and create the training content. After this training, one of the things you must have known how to do, or you must go develop yourself on very well, is on curriculum development. Curriculum development. Curriculum development. All right, curriculum development. Curriculum development. So many organizations are making a hell lot of money from training. Okay, administering training to organizations. And you can also do a very good work by understanding how training and development, curriculum development, in parentheses, work. All right. Okay, so some of us working with parastatals, working with organizations, instead of always looking for organizations to come train your staff. So why don't you start building effective and efficient curricula that could deliver results? And that's what we are calling value. All right. And some of us in organizations, whatever the consulting people bring, we just accept it as that way. We don't question what they are bringing. We don't even try to analyze if the content of the training will meet up with, one, the needs of the people, two, the needs of the organization, three, the industry needs. So if we develop our capacities towards curriculum development, it makes training and development easy task, right? All right, then the next thing there is implementing. So implement and execute the training solution that is developed and use it to impart training. All right. In implementing, you need to find out which best training delivery approach will you use, which platform will you use, which technology will you use. All of these are very, very important in training needs analysis. Is it going to be online? Is it going to be offline? Is it going to be, if it's offline, is it going to be audio-based program? Is it going to be video-based program? Is it going to be pre-recorded? Is it going to be live? All of these things are things you consider in implementation process. What will be the cost of training if it were to be online, if it were to be offline? Which one will give you the most impactful results, the online or the offline? All right, so these are the things you consider in implementation, all right? Implementation. Then the next one there is evaluation. Assess and evaluate to compare employee and team performance before and after training, all right? All right, so you must be able, that's why I say in training, in identifying, there are three things we actually need to identify. One is where are we currently? Two, where do we want to get to? And three, what do we need to get there? So in training needs analysis, if we have identified where we are and identified the things we need to get to where we want to get to, evaluation becomes easy. So evaluation will be a function of where are we able to move from where we used to be to where we want to be. That's a very simple question. And by objective means, we should be able to, without too much mathematical calculations, we should be able to see, all right? We should be able to see. This class had been on since September 19th, and it's going to be ending by maybe possibly month end We'll be rounding up by month end of November. So you have September, you have October, you have November. So what keeps you coming back? Had there been something changing from where you used to be to where you really want to be? I am sure that there is something that you've learned that makes you keep coming back. Okay, we started this class with over 200 persons, right? Yeah, we started in the general induction program. We had over 200 persons, right? So the class keeps dropping. The class keeps dropping. So what keeps you consistent, right? What prompted you to pay? Is there something you actually found out? So you have done your own training needs analysis on personal or corporate basis, and you've been able to say, okay, I think this is the right thing for me to do. So do your training needs evaluation very well before you proceed, right? Okay, now needs for training and development. Why do we need training and development? For development purposes of an individual, say that. So there is a personal dimension of training and development, which is primarily why, if not all of us, but at least over 90% of us are here because we want to develop personally, right? So that's one of the reasons for training. Then secondly, for organization fitness, I think I've said that also. So it provides competitive advantage for organizations, right? And also as an individual, it provides strategic advantage, competitive advantage. And then thirdly, for on industry trains, it also provides advantage, right? So the word of ever continuing knowledge, all right? So knowledge becomes not just knowledge, but practical knowledge, applicable knowledge becomes high valued assets. Okay, it becomes high valued assets, all right? Should I tell you something? If I ask this question, I know maybe one or two people will raise their hand, but I don't want to ask the question. But I want to tell you something. And I'm not in any way encouraging you or motivating you or doing something to entice you. No. For those of us that are really passionate about developing ourselves, especially in this HR dimension, I want to tell you something. If you keep developing yourself, not just developing, but you keep developing, you keep learning, and you keep practicing, sometimes you will come to the point that you might have to render your services without having to collect a dime. At another time, you start adding some fees to your work because you could see the value that is bringing. And at some point, you will not be the one to add value again. People will tell you how much you are worth. They will be willing to pay anything to get you to do their work. And I'm not joking. Maybe at this point, you sitting down to write HR planning might not fetch anything to your table. But if you continue in this HR practice without having to move to the right or to the left, or you are consistent, a time will come that just for you to draw a HR plan, you could be earning hundreds of millions. And it is the same thing that you did when nobody paid you. You do it again and somebody will pay you 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, all of that. If I must say this, this knowledge we are getting now, they are not just for everyone. A time is coming when you as a person, as a HR practitioner, will be priced so high. You work so little, but you'll be priced so high. Why? Because of continuous development, continuous passion to add value to others by adding value to yourself first. And that will culminate to higher value in financial return coming to you. It will increase your honor, increase your respect, it will increase your dignity. Okay. A time will come when somebody will tell you, this project, I just have 5 million naira. Can you help me? And you tell the person, I will do it for you for free, because you just noticed at that point, if you collect the 5 million from the person, you could be causing trouble to the person. So you decide to do it for free. But after 5 years, the person returns with 50 million and tells you, I just want to thank you for what you did some times ago. So as we keep building ourselves, we just find that as we build the right goals and keep building ourselves towards achieving the right goals, would have been sowing quite a number of seeds that when they germinate, will labor a little, but have so much to store. All right. So that's very, very important. So training needs, number 4. Why do we need training needs assessment? In growing and evolving organizations, training and development helps provide needed response to changing environment. All right. So I've spoken so much about the dynamism or the dynamics of the current trends we are, the ever-changing consumer behavior, right? So we need training to be able to manage those things. Now, our training and development plays a pivotal role in continuous learning process that is required for human development. It helps an individual to develop one's personality, hone one's skill, and enhance efficiency. Did you know the most frequent reasons for trainings to fail is when trainers are not familiar with the topic and tend to read directly from a textbook? This makes the training extremely monotonous and unappealing to the learners. They do not perceive any value addition through the training being imparted and hence tend to get disengaged, which ultimately leads to greatly reduced retention of information. Some time ago too in Abuja, I had one of the staff of one big company, very big company. In fact, some of us take their products every day. All right. And this manager came to the training. It was a HSC training. And after the training, why everybody was trying to say farewell at the end of the whole weeks of training, he said that they attended, his company sent them on the training to Lagos. And after the training, as they were coming out of the training, they were tearing their certificate. I said, why did you tear certificate? They didn't get to understand anything for the training. For 3 days, you were stuck in a hotel, paid for, you were fed, you were given training and hours, and you taught the certificate. Said the certificate does not make sense. The value was not there. That's what we're trying to say here. Training should be impactful. Training should be so impactful that if the person who attended the training was to use what he learned, he will ever remain grateful that he actually learned something from the training. Okay, not the trainings that you understand why the training is going on. After the training is going, you understand nothing. That is not training. Or the training that you don't even understand anything at all. That's not training. So we must pay attention to it, and we shouldn't be what they call them. Is it nail readers? Is it nail reader? Be nail reader. Okay. All right. Training design and delivery principle. We should have this following principle in mind while designing and delivering trainings. Training should provide opportunities for repetition of the learning. So people should have opportunity to try out what they've learned. Okay, either on-site or off-site. It should fulfill the organization's purpose of training the employees to meet organizational goals. Training should motivate the learner. Training should invite active participation of the learner. Okay, for those of us that are going to be consultants, especially training consultants, if you happen to be a trainer, don't be a monotonous trainer. Okay, the reason why you ask questions in class and try to decentralize the power in the class is for active participation. That is also a way of telling you, people get to be liberal to tell you their levels of knowledge, their levels of orientation, and that will help you know how to structure your training and know the amount of time, the amount of case studies you're going to give, examples you're going to provide for learning to be effective and effectual. So training should be what? Training should be participatory. Okay. It should provide continuous and constructive feedback to learner. All right. Training should provide opportunities for application of learning. Very, very important. The delivery of training should be done in an open, efficient, and consistent manner. Not you do training After 5 years, nobody has heard of training again. And then I've actually encouraged people, make training, if you're among those that have yearly budget, make training and development as part of your budget every year. Okay, if you don't have the resources to do every month, then you try every quarter. If you don't have the resources for every quarter, then you try half yearly. If you don't have the resources for half yearly, then pick out one training per year and put yourself to it. All right, put yourself to it. Now let's make it simple. If you spend 100 to 250,000 on yourself every year, on, or let's say 100 to, or maybe based on the value, the revenue you have at hand. Let's assume 100 to 250,000 per annum for your training. If you have such budget, at least the next year you'll find out that you would have gotten enough value to now place yourself on 500 to 700. And if you keep building yourself, you keep having value to yourself, keep having value for others, right? That's very, very important. It should be consistent. Development, training and development for us should be consistent. For organizations should be consistent, all right? So training should try to include on-the-job training opportunities. Training should try to include away from the job training opportunities. The training should include a proper and efficient or effective training and development plan and ways for each successful implementation. There are organizations that they do all their trainings by themselves. Sometimes 100% in-house training at some point get to be boring and becomes inefficient. All right, maybe out of 12 months, for those of us that do a monthly training, out of 12 months, you can schedule to have 5 outsiders, and then the remaining 7 can be done in-house. And out of the 7, you may use 5, you rotate it from the people who have been trained. Let them become trainers to the incoming ones, and then provide coaches and mentors as the 7th people, 6th and 7th people. All right, that makes the training so free-flowing, engaging, and challenging as well. All right, so all these organizations are always doing training by themselves. Even at some point, the in-house trainer gets to be exhausted. Phases of training and development program. You have phase 1, needs assessment or needs analysis. Phase 2, design and delivery of training. And phase 3, evaluation. For phase 1, I think we've spent so much time on talking about this needs assessment. We need to find out where are we going to, and what do we need to get there? What skills do we need to get there? So that's about that. Then the needs assessment or needs analysis has to be done at the following 3 levels: the organizational analysis, the operations analysis, and the individuals analysis. The organizational analysis involves analyzing the organizational strategies, organizational goals, and mission, and so on. The operations analysis involves analyzing the operations in which the individual works. The gap between process and individual's knowledge need to be analyzed, and then content developed to meet up with those gaps. Then we'll have the individual analysis, which involve analyzing the individual's deficiencies and lack of skills, knowledge, abilities, and behaviors required to meet his goals. Then we'll have the information for needs analysis can be gathered from any of the following: advisory committees, assessment centers, attitude survey, group discussion, questionnaires, skills test, observations of behavior, performance appraisal, performance document, exit interviews, employee interviews. Then we have phase 2, designing and delivery of training. The second phase of the training and development involves actual design of the training program, keeping in mind the outcome of the needs analysis phase. The training program should be designed keeping in mind the needs of the learners and also what should be achieved at the end of the training program. This phase also includes the actual delivery of the training by the trainer to the trainees. Then we have phase 3, the evaluation. The third and the final phase of training and development program is evaluation. This is one of the most important phases in terms of measuring whether the trainer actually learned an objective of the training program was met or not. So all of those things that we had to write down as to where we are going, and then having to understand the skill sets we need to get where we want to get to. All of those things will be evaluated, all right? All of those things will be evaluated, all right? Okay. The following considerations should be taken into account while evaluating the learners. The first one is evaluation of the learners should be done at different levels such as knowledge, understanding, application, etc., right? And these things are very, very important, all right? Very, very important. Remember I said something. If you don't get to apply what you know, then you actually get nothing from what you know. If you don't get to act on what you know, you actually get no results from what you know. So knowing is not enough. We need to understand. We need to apply. Okay? We need to be more practical with what we know. In fact, we learn more by practicing what we've learned. We learn more by practicing what we've learned. All right? We learn more by practicing what we've learned. All right? The overall reaction of the participants should also be evaluated, whether they were happy, unhappy, and indifferent towards the training program. Evaluate the manner in which the participants learned in the training. Evaluate how the behavior of participants changed after the training. Evaluate which of the organizational goals were affected and met at the end of the training. Carry out the evaluation by applying various evaluation strategies. All of this need to be taken into account. Now, there is something I would like to say before I proceed. When we say apply, practice what you learn, some people get to feel like, how do I practice what I learned? Okay, and some people feel like, I just know it, but I don't know how to do it. That's why we are here. Where you want to apply what you've learned and you're unable to apply what you learned, the best thing to do is to call attention and say, okay, I've tried doing this, it didn't work, so can you help me? I need to. Then you find help immediately. You find help immediately. All right. So don't just keep yourself and say, I've tried learning, I didn't learn, so that's it. All right. So what is actually training needs analysis? It's a technique for deciding whether a training need exists, and in the event that it does, what preparation is required to fill the gap. A significant part of training needs analysis procedure is tied in with making inquiries and finding solutions. Conducting the training needs analysis required various stages which correlate and expand on each other. Costing the training development and execution issue, and then looking at design cost is a critical piece of the training needs analysis report. That is actually a very, I love this statement, this costing side. One of the reasons why most organizations don't really indulge in training is always the cost of training, cost of training. For me, I always feel to tell organizations, especially HRs and organizations, that there is always a way out. There's always a way out. So let's assume you costed the training for the year, it was going to cost you 20 million naira, right? And maybe that's like 5% or 10% of your total company revenue per year. And you don't really have all the resources to do that. Can you then find alternatives to still giving out the training without incurring such costs? The answer is yes. So we shouldn't actually be running away from training because of cost. Okay, we shouldn't be. We should just find alternatives to delivering the training, to deliver the results, without having to incur the unnecessary costs. All right, like a friend of mine was telling me yesterday. He said he was contracted to train for a particular NGO, and they told him they were going to pay him 10 days after the training. And he said this training was done in a 5-star hotel in Abuja here. All right. And you're doing training in a 5-star hotel, and you're still complaining that the fee of the facilitator is high. Wisdom demands that you mustn't do the training in 5-star hotel or even going for 7-star hotel. It doesn't demand. Wisdom demands that you find best approach. You could actually contract this what they call it. You can contract this training consultant from the comfort of his office. He administers the training to all your staff at their different locations. You cut costs, they cut costs, they can even learn while on the job. So it makes the training for the facilitator quite easier. They can learn in the field, they can learn anywhere. So must you have to pay for accommodation, pay for training venue, pay for facilitator, pay for food, maybe for 5-10 days? That is going to be so a whole lot. So if your company or any company that uses this approach of we must all gather one place and then we make our 10 days, 5 days, and then we must get a very good place, no, that doesn't really, in fact, that doesn't really guarantee effectiveness of trainings. Okay, it doesn't really guarantee effectiveness of trainings. Okay, all right, just a moment. I'll be. Okay, so costing shouldn't be a problem. And also for those of us that are training consultants that will always lavish organizations with so much money that makes training so boring for them, please, you can do better. Okay, we can do better with our costing. All right, so why training needs analysis? Following are some of the reasons that will help you understand why you should conduct training needs analysis. Number one, to focus on areas that are in greatest need of being trained for, to create a cost-effective and successful training, and then to abstain from training people just for the sake of conducting a training. That's one of the errors that most of us have in training, just training people for training sake. Then to isolate the consequences from the courses, to engage and seek commitment from management, managers, employees, and organization as a whole. Then to gather information and data on target audience as well as organizations' environment. How to identify a training need. Protest, grievances, and complaint from staff and clients or customers could indicate a training need. Low quality of work, large staff turnover, your staff keep leaving the organization. Then you have consistent errors, blunders, and defects. All of this. All of this could give you an indication that there is need for what? There is need for training needs. And then introduction of new equipment, procedures, processes, and systems in organization framework. For us to introduce these things, we need to train people on them so that they get used to them. Then deadlines not being met, large customer attrition, strife among staff. All of these are reasons why we need to conduct training needs analysis. Factors to consider in training needs analysis. There are various factors that affect the success of a training program. While conducting training needs analysis, you must take these factors into consideration, which will help the training to achieve the end goal for which it is being conducted. So you have the factors as the training program must provide opportunities to the learners to practice what they've learned. The training program must be designed to encourage the active participation of the trainee or participants of the training program. The training program must allow the transfer of learning to take place from a training to actual job or academic excellence. Keep in mind the intent of the participant of the training program to learn, the kind of reinforcement provided to the learner to help reiterate the learning that took place during the training. The training program must help to develop the potential from an individual's point of view. Purpose of training program. It is important for any trainer to know the purpose of a training program. By knowing the purpose of a training program, a trainer knows what he is aiming at or aiming to achieve at the end of every training program. Most of us trainers have this attitude of, you receive an invitation and you don't get to ask What's the objective? What am I really coming to deliver? Who are my target audience? What are they expecting? And we just go there, deliver anything we feel like, and that makes a whole mess of everything. So we must understand training needs, goals, and objectives before embarking on anyone. So the following are the key purposes for any training program. Number one, learners should acquire knowledge. Number two, there should be a change in the attitudes of the learners. Number three, the training should help the learners to put theory to practice. Then number four, the training should help to evaluate abilities and competencies of the learner. It should enhance problem solving and decision-making ability. The training program should improve the performance of learning. Important thing that you must consider as a tip, it is very important that before designing and delivering any training, a trainer should assess the diversity of the group. Yeah. So who is your target audience? What is their makeup? You need to find out. You should be well aware of information regarding the people you are about to train. This is because each individual is different in terms of their language, literacy, numeracy. Skills, learning style, like the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, and then possible disabilities. Hence, as a trainer, you should know these factors to enable you ensure that everyone can learn in the environment you provide them. That's very, very important. Now, quickly, let's look at knowledge, skills, and abilities. If there are differences, if there are similarities, let's find out. Knowledge is information or data, particular and specific to a subject, empowering a man to comprehend a subject to a satisfactory level. Skill is a developed or created inclination or capacity in specific intellectual or physical domain. Then abilities. Ability is the inherent internal talent, skill, or proficiency in a particular area. All right. So knowledge and skills might not be learned and can also be inherent in us in the form of abilities. Why they could be inherent? Training help us to develop them. Okay, training help us to do what? To develop them. The various training and development perspectives. We have the fragmented approach, the formalized approach, the focused approach. For the fragmented approach, training is seen as unnecessary extravagance. Training is not linked or connected to organizational or hierarchical objectives. Training is instructional and conveyed through trainers or instructors, non-systemic or systematic way to deal with training. It concentrates on training and not improvement. Knowledge, it is always a function of knowledge or theory-based courses. Now we have the formalized approach. Training is directly and straightforward connected to human resource needs. So it's precise and systematic formative training linked and connected to appraisals. Line managers and superiors are involved in development and contribute to the improvement of the course content. So it's all about knowledge and theory-based courses expanded to aptitude-based. Training is still conducted by trainers. However, the scope of aptitudes required increases. Increased pre- and post-course activities and exercises are also carried out in the formalized approach. For the focused approach, training becomes a strategy and a source of competitiveness and survival in the market. So training helps to provide on-the-job advancement. Individual is provided safe choice for specific instructional classes. Training is non-directive except for knowledge-based instructional classes. So new types of training implementation techniques are investigated. For example, open courses and e-learning. Measuring and estimation of training results is critical to the association. Now, questions to consider in training needs analysis. Does the employee need the training? What strategic goals of the organization should the employee meet? What tasks should the employee complete to achieve goals? What behaviors are necessary to achieve goals? What deficiencies, if any, does the employee have in terms of skills, knowledge, abilities, behaviors? All of these are part of the things you need to ask while carrying out training needs analysis. Retention of learners is 10% of what they retain 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, 50% of what they both hear and see, 70% of what they say, and 90% of what they say and do. Methods for data collection for TNA. We'll have meetings and interviews, study pools and surveys, critical events and incidents. All of this could be used in collecting data for TNA. We could also have industry seminars, supervisors and managers reports, and then logbooks and other organization records. Components of training needs analysis report will have the cover or title. They will have executive summary or synopsis. They will have table of contents. We'll have introduction. We'll have suggestions and recommendations. They will have the training plans. They will have data or information collection methods, techniques, analysis strategies, cost investigation, proposed cost of recommended training solutions. All right. Engagement and motivation training. One must know his fellow trainee well. You can't work in a group and learn with someone you don't know. Include a lot of exercises which help the participants to know each other well and break the ice between them. Some of the engagement and motivation activities are make pairs and ask them to write whatever they know about their partner and vice versa. You can ask anyone to write his partner's favorite color, favorite outfits, preferred hangout place, and so on. Ask his partner to correct him if he is wrong in his answers. People know a lot about each other this way and also finds out some unknown facts about their partner. Ask the trainees to give their introduction one by one once the team has completed this activity. Now, there is something about some training fast. They just jump into a training class and they train from beginning to the end. They don't get to ask questions. There's no activity to be done. No bonding of any kind, not bonding between the trainer and the trainee, no bonding between trainee and trainee. So it's like just came to dictate note, news commentary, and just left. Those kind of trainings are not really effective and effectual. Always celebrate and appreciate any achievements. Celebrations are significant as they are a means of demonstrating that as a trainer, you are concerned about the learner's success and achievement. Such appreciations help boost morale and create a feeling of unity among the trainees. They motivate the trainees to work harder and experiment new things. In the case of training like we have now, the appreciation here might not really be maybe giving a gift or something, but you should be able to acknowledge that what someone said really makes some sense. Even if it doesn't make whole sense in the whole era, but from the angle he or she is speaking from, is making some sense, and you help him make much more sense by appreciating him and then correcting him or correcting her. First, by appreciating what he first said, and then correcting what need to be corrected. Steps in training needs analysis. Steps in training needs analysis. Following are the steps. Following are the steps which are the most effective methods to complete a training needs analysis process. Step number 1, document the issue. Step number 2, explore and investigate the issue. Step number 3, plan the needs analysis. Step number 4, select the procedure or technique. Step number 5, conduct needs analysis. Step number 5, analyze the data or collected information. Step number 7, report the findings. of the analysis. Okay, so we are going to take a look at an example. But before we take a look at the example, I would like to know if there is any question for me, anything so far, before we proceed. Please, any question for me so far before we proceed? Any question for me so far? Any comment so far before we proceed? Could there be any question for me? Any comment? All right, so why we are trying to, okay, so I have Joseph Usman. Please, can you kindly unmute and let's hear from you. Joseph Usman, please kindly unmute and let's hear from you. Yes, please, welcome, sir.
I was trying to understand the management training analysis. And
your network is breaking. I could barely hear you.
Okay, we're discussing about the fragmented analysis. When the hello.
Okay,
hello?
Sorry, your network is breaking, but I think your network is breaking, but I think I heard fragmented. So let's go back a little bit so that we can, I know you mentioned fragmented. That's the only thing I heard. So what is the fragmented learning approach? So let's look at it and understand what it is. Fragmented learning approach or fragmented training approach. Okay, so a fragmented learning approach is like organizations doing training for just training's sake. Let's just give them training. It's just part of the things we do. So it doesn't really have any goal is intended to do. Just like some people feel like, let me just take this course. Why are you taking the course? I just want to take it. Why? There's no reason. So when there is no goal to a training, we would actually say that training is unconnected. There is no relationship between the training versus the corporate goals, all right? So that becomes fragmented, all right? That becomes unnecessary kind of training. And those kind of trainings are the ones that people could come and just read stories and leave. They are the trainings that trainees will come bored and feel like we didn't really learn anything from this. Where there is a goal, where there is goal, it's easy to say we learned something, okay? Because where goals are defined, when they are met, it's easy to measure. But where goals are not defined, it's difficult to say, we're able to achieve such. So fragmented approach is just dealing with training as part of the components of the organization. But in this such training, there is no linked objective or goal to why the training must take place, okay? But in the other approach of the formalized approach, you find that there is a link to the training. There is a connection between the training and the organizational goals, all right? While in the focused approach, it now uses training as a strategy for achieving corporate goals. It uses training as a strategy to achieving corporate goals and competitive advantage, all right? Okay, so Mr. Joseph, I trust you could have understood that better. I just had training needs analysis, so I felt that's what you wanted to know. Okay, please, could there be any other question? Please, could there be any other question? Could there be any other question? If there is a question, you could just lift your hand. We'll take the question and then we'll proceed. Okay, so while we await questions, let's quickly go through this example on the significance of training needs analysis. As you have seen in the scenario at the beginning of this course, okay, so there is a scenario we would have looked at, but we skipped it. So I will recommend that while you're studying, just go through the first scenario, the first case study on Rebecca. Okay, so Rebecca has to develop soft skills training program for Crypting's employees. First of all, the Learning and Development Department at Crypting identified the need for a soft skills training program. The cost for identifying the need for a soft skill training program arose due to large number of complaints from clients. Many of Crypting's clients had complained that Crypting's employees, including project managers, failed to communicate properly. The lack of proper communication leads to failure of understanding the client's requirements. Also, most clients complained of the unprofessional way in which Crypting's employees handled calls. These increasing client complaints led to identification of a need for soft skills training program. Now, Rebecca has to understand the gaps in the soft skills which has led to complaints. So she developed a feedback questionnaire that she asked the employees who directly interact with clients to complete. She also gets a different questionnaire filled from some of the Crypting's long-standing loyal clients. These loyal clients share a rapport with Crypting and are happy to help in improving the client's interaction with employees. Next, Rebecca analyzes the collected data and identifies key knowledge, skills, and abilities that have to be met by training program. She further decides on the content to be delivered or covered in the training program, the mode of instruction to be used, goals to be met. She also decides the training plan, duration of the section, and other recommendations for the training program. After the training needs analysis is complete, Rebecca collates the information in a report and submits it to the L&D, that's the Learning and Development Head, for approval. After the approval, Rebecca is sure that she can now design and develop a successful training program. Rebecca is confident of the success of training program as she has invested the right amount of time and effort in training needs analysis phase. She knows that the time spent and invested in the first stage of training needs analysis will greatly help to reduce failures and iterations. It will also help to greatly improve the training program's chances of success and deliver the necessary results. Okay, so as we begin to round up, let's quickly look at the importance of learning styles for training needs analysis. It is very important to understand the various learning styles used by individuals to learn while conducting the training needs analysis. Learning styles have a major influence on the way an individual learns. A learner's preferred learning style guides the manner in which he internally represents experiences, manner in which he recalls information, and the words he chooses. It has also been proven by research findings that each learning style uses different parts of the brain. Thus, if you analyze and incorporate teaching methods that involve different parts of the brain, you will help your trainees remember more of what they learn. There are 7 learning styles as follows. We have the visual, we have the oral, we have the verbal, we have the physical, we have the logical, we have the social, we have the solitary. Okay, so visual, oral, verbal, physical, logical, social, and solitary. So by visual, based on what we see; oral, based on what we hear; verbal, based on what was said or spoken; physical, based on maybe things we touch; logical, by reasoning; social, by interaction; solitary, possibly by reading and being alone, reflections, meditations. Okay, so number 1, visual. Learners use pictures, images, and spatial understanding. Visual sense is managed by occipital lobes at the back of the brain. Spatial orientation is managed by both the occipital and parietal lobes. Then we have 2, which is the oral or auditory musical. Learners use sound and music to learn. Oral or auditory musical content is handled by the temporal lobes. The right temporal lobe is especially important for music. They will have the verbal or linguistic. Learners use words, both in speech and writing. The temporal and frontal lobes handle linguistic related content. They will have the physical or kinesthetic. Learners use their body, hands, and sense of touch. Much of the physical environment is handled by the cerebellum and the motor cortex found at the back of the frontal lobe. They will have the logical or the mathematical dimension. Learners use logic, reasoning, and systems. Logical thinking is driven by parietal lobes, especially the left side. Then we'll have the social or the interpersonal. Learners prefer to learn in groups. Social activities are handled by frontal and temporal lobes. This style is influenced by the limbic system. The limbic system deals with emotions, moods, and aggression. Then we'll have the seventh one, which is the solitary or the intrapersonal. Learners prefer to work alone and use self-study. This style is also influenced by the limbic system. In this style, the frontal and the parietal lobes and the limbic system are active. And then finally, the factors for design and delivery strategy. Following are some of the crucial factors and learning principles that you should keep in mind while deciding how the training program should be designed and delivered during training needs analysis. We have preparation, we have content, we have visual aids, practice the training day and after training. So let's look at each and what they have to say. For preparation, how much does the learner know about the subject prior to training? Do you have enough knowledge about the topic of the training? Does the training room have all the resources required, such as electrical supply, internet access, projector screen, etc.? What do you want to achieve at the end of the training? Now, for you to become a training consultant, it doesn't mean that you must know everything about the training, but you should always be involved in research and development, right? You should always be involved in research and development. That will help in that would help you in developing more. All right, that will help you in developing more. The content, does your introduction grab the learner's attention? Do you have the objectives clearly stated out in your training content? Are the main points in the logical sequence? Does the conclusion summarize the training clearly and concisely? Have you tried to avoid using jargons in your training? Then for visual aids, are the visual aids easy to read and view and easy to understand? For those of us that use projector, is this overcrowded or is it easy to read? Is all the training material consistent in looks? Does all the training material use the same fonts? Are they easy to read? Does each training material have optimum amount of text? Do you have a contingency plan in case your visual aid fails? For practicing of the training, have you practiced your training material standing or sitting, paying close attention to your body language and posture? Have you rehearsed often enough to be able to speak smoothly and fluently? Have you practiced your training materials in front of others? On the training day, are you dressed and groomed appropriately? Have you left enough time for travel and setting up? Have you checked your visual aids to ensure that they are working? Are your visual aids ordered in correct order? During training, make and maintain eye contact with learner. Then after the training, have you ensured that your learner understands everything that was covered in the training? Do you need to follow up with any of your learners? Have you asked for feedback from your learners? How can you improve your next training? Hierarchy of training needs analysis. There is analysis of business performance areas. Then there is organizational performance analysis, or what we call gap analysis. Then there is analysis of employee or team performance, which is the gap analysis. Then prioritizing your training needs is very, very important. Important thing, you should use the following flow of training stages to teach any concept. Explain the idea, concept, or information to learners. Demonstrate the idea, concept, or information through examples, case studies, role plays, and so on. walk through a process together with the learners, allow the learners to walk through the same process independently. Why games activities? Why games and activities in design strategy? Activities and games help to make the communication effective between co-participants in a training. Every individual is very clear about his goal and objective and what exactly is expected of him. Such games must be flexible enough and take into consideration the fact that learners come from different backgrounds, have different mental levels, different potential, different patience rate, and an amalgamation of other differences. Such games assist in learner motivation also. No different learners for designing training. Obviously, there are different kinds of people why we train, so we have to understand them. We have the number one people, we are called the mediocre people. We have the number two difficult people. We have the number three, the brilliant people. The mediocre people are people that are extremely ordinary, average, second rate, middle of the road employees with very minimal contribution coming out of them. Such learners will need to be motivated in order to engage them and get them interested in the learning. Including engaging activities and attention-grabbing content can motivate such learners to learn. To design for mediocre people, keep the following points in mind. Understand them and their limitations, avoid disengagement, and keep the best out of them, or get the best out of them rather. Keep an open communication channel. Give feedback to these learners to help them progress. Respect them as important individuals. Give positive feedback in public, but give reprimands in private. Bring the best out of them. For the difficult people, these are the kind of people with a wide range of personality types, including some who are inconsiderate, inane, incorrigible, inappeasable, intransigent, indecent, or even downright sleazy. Such people thrive on achievement and like to prove their efficiency and superiority over others. Your training should give these people a sense of achievement and prove to them how it will make them better than their counterparts. In designing a training for difficult people, engage difficult people in training. Celebrate the accomplishment of short-term goals of training, repeat process until holistic goals of the training have been achieved. Use constructive feedback. Be as diplomatic as possible, rather. Respect them as important individuals. Remain level-headed and strong. For brilliant people, they are those who are considered to be luminous, radiant, dazzling, sparkling, gleaming, shining, and bright. These are the kinds of people who are termed to be gifted, talented, and take a great pride in their accomplishments. Such people like to get trained for continuously keeping their skills and aptitudes updated and to stay ahead of others and excel in their lives. To design for brilliant people, to design training for brilliant people, tap in the brilliant people's belief that efficiency multiplied by effectiveness will give them results. Tap in on the brilliant people's energy, enthusiasm, initiative, drive, and inspiration to influence and engage them. Training should display similar aspects as them because they identify with these or with things that is bit the same attributes, characteristics, and traits. To design for brilliant people, also keep in mind, influence them by your ability to think out of the box, as they also do not dwell on the problems, but come out with solutions. Understand what makes a brilliant person tick. Tap in on their need for upgrading their skills, knowledge, and attitude. Cater to their demands in terms of learning and gaining new information to handle and drive them. Do not involve them in any routine or mundane activities. Effective training needs analysis. The following are some of the aspects that make for effective training needs analysis. Is proactive and takes responsibility, begins with the end in mind and decides the outcome of the training first, aims for win-win and seeks solution to everyone wins, just so sorry. I'm so sorry. I muted myself and I didn't notice. So sorry, so sorry, so sorry. Thank you. Thank you for calling my attention to that. So sorry. Okay, so I muted myself and I didn't notice that. So sorry. So can you hear me loud and clear now? So if you can hear me, let me know. All right, thank you so much. All right. So sorry, I muted myself. All right, so let's quickly take this exercise. Then we will call it a day from here. Assuming a situation where you are required to train a group of 7 people on a small topic of your choice, the training session should last for 1 hour, including the warm-up activities, main content delivery, and final closing of the training session. Question number 1, how would you plan and organize content for this training section? Number 2, what key points would you keep in mind while assessing the training needs of the group of people? And number 3, how would you evaluate the effectiveness of the training that you delivered to the group? So these just 3 questions. Assuming you're a facilitator to take a class for 7 people for just 1 hour, how are you going to handle it based on these 3 questions? So we just take 3 persons. The first 3 persons to raise their hands, we just take that, and then we'll be calling it a night from here after questions. All right, please, we need 3 people to make their contribution, and then we will call it